I've done a bit of research and I saw that you've done over 1,000 deals in Chicago. If I was to start a business in Chicago now, what would you tell me not to do?
Well, from what perspective? From the perspective of office space?
Well, in just real estate, if I was going to start on my own now.
Uh, don't lease space that you don't need. Don't lease space that doesn't work for you. Usually, I think in the positives, not the negatives. Lease space that works for you. Lease space for the right amount of time. Uh, Take a global evaluation of what you need and solve for that requirement and add 3 years. And that's what you should lease.
So, in terms of like your role, can you just share about a bit about what you do and how it fits into your company in terms of the
I
bigger
am
picture?
a commercial tenant representative. That gets shortened to tenant rep. And for most of my career, I was in the office space end of the industry. Really, I still am, but because of the pandemic, we did what we needed to do. We did retail, industrial, warehouse.
So, was there a specific moment in your career that made you sort of say that I'm going to be on the tenant side, sort of in that welfare sort of space for them?
Well, I started my career that way. It's the only thing I've ever done. I've never represented product as my contemporaries who represent the buildings with whom I negotiate. I've never done that. I once worked for a company that was a horrible place to work. Horrible people owned the company, and that lasted for about 12 and a half months, longer than it would have been ideal. After 14 months with them, I left and started my own company. I was already by then 30, and I had been in business before, so I was a little further along the curve than maybe other people would have been.
So that obviously that covers like how it started. In terms of gaining clients, like how did that come about? You know, word of mouth or networking.
Networking, cold calling, cold calling, and cold calling.
Just grafting all the time.
But it was an amazing way to begin to build a business. I mean, the thought that it was possible to create opportunity by calling people that really didn't want to talk to you, that was pretty amazing. It still is, but it still works. It has become more challenging, more difficult perhaps, but it's still a very good thing to do.
Uh, So in terms of the industry right now, what shifts would you say you're seeing uh, be most impactful?
Well, my perspective is limited to Chicago metropolitan area. Um, and in the Chicago market, industrial remains in short supply. Office is in enormous supply, but it depends on how much money is in your purse. If you're shopping for a Lamborghini and you can pay cash, you'll probably be able to buy the Lamborghini for the price of a nice Jaguar.
Uh,
But if you don't have the cash for a Jaguar and you need instead to be looking at the C end of the market, C class buildings, things will be a little tougher. If it is possible to look in between, it's possible now in Chicago to get deals on what had been a class product. And because of the grading curve, a building that in 2000 was A cannot possibly be 2000, A again in 2010 when the new crop of buildings opens. So it gets relegated to the next class down, but nothing is wrong with the building. And that probably is where the market is the most open. Um,
So how would you say that's impacted your business?
uh, I'm not sure that that has impacted the business as much as the business has been impacted by COVID. The pandemic still seems to be hanging around the office market in terms of occupancy. Uh, and that simply has changed what is possible to bring home for this deal or that deal. It has nothing. It has done nothing to change deal making. You still need to understand what the other side wants and needs, because if both sides don't win, there will be no deal. Even if it feels like both sides are losing, at least it has to be a shared undertaking, or the building will say thanks anyway, or the tenant will say thanks anyway.
So COVID's kind of moved the goalpost as to, people have now working from home a lot more. So, these companies are going to want a smaller premises, if one at all.
So,
In,
yes, in terms of, in that respect, what the pandemic did, and this is still very much part of the real estate environment, in my experience. People said, gee, we don't need space, or we need shared space, executive suites, co-working, whatever you want to call it. Or they will say, well, we would like a 1-year lease. Okay. Try to do a 1-year lease if the space needs to be built from a raw condition. Cannot be done. The deal has to be balanced internally, or one side or the other is going to say no thanks. So what the pandemic did cause to happen, and this is still very much the case, is that construction cost is looked at more critically than it had ever been looked at before. Clearly, any building owner would like to sign a lease at market rates without having to pay for a build-out. Occasionally, that's possible, mostly because the tenant is not being represented properly by someone who does what I do for a living, for example.
so in terms of, your business, what's working well for you right now? And in contrast, what would you say has been frustrating?
What continues to differentiate MAP Real Estate is its way of doing business. And now I'm going to get away from the mechanics and the art of negotiating, and instead focus on what we call doing business, doing good. MAP Real Estate is a social enterprise. We have been for now 25 years, long before it became fashionable. MAP Real Estate made a commitment starting in 1995 to give 10% of each commission to the world. We do that by getting the money to a registered charity. We don't decide who the charity is, the client does. That is a pretty unusual way to do business, giving away 10% of the gross and letting someone else decide where the money goes. But for reasons that have to do with licensure in the United States and the constraints imposed upon licensees in the United States, we have done things the way we need to so that what we are doing is License Act compliant in all 50 states. And we refer to it very simply as doing business, doing good. That continues to differentiate map real estate in a pretty significant way in the Chicago market, and we get business as a result of that.
So you saying that you've been leading this for over 30 years now. Um, what would you say other companies have used you as a model and tried to copy you in any way? Or
Yes, I've been in real estate now for nearly 40 years. We began investing in communities as a program before it became a nonprofit. That was in 1995. And for example, um, a competitor of ours in Chicago, excuse me, not a competitor in any direct sense. This is really a very large residential brokerage company. They do also have a commercial division, and those people compete directly against us. But they wanted to roll out something called investing in our communities. And clearly they had stolen that from us, and we were able to shut down that action on their part. Otherwise, what we have been doing began so long ago that I do think that brokers in other parts of the country have learned about what we're doing. In Chicago, very clear to us, our competitors were attempting to benefit from acting nice. And by that, I mean that if they had the opportunity in competition against us to say to the same prospective client, oh, well, we'll do that too, they did so. And they said exactly those words. We think that probably that is a reaction to our having initiated this type of business practice. Who knows?
yeah, I can. So from what I get from that is like, although these companies are ticking a box, they don't actually really care. They're just doing it because it seems to be fashionable or the right thing to do. So you're going up against people that don't really care.
Clearly, they're doing it because they're trying to beat us out of that particular deal. They have not made a declaration to the world, as we did in 1995, that every single deal that we do will involve 10%, excuse me, of the commission going to charity.
So in terms of, just running the business, what are you focused on most improving right now? And if you could quantify that, or if that would just be, relationship building.
I really don't have a very useful answer to that question because, as you can see from the color of my beard and my hair, I'm probably older than you. Maybe a lot. Maybe that means that I'm sort of at the end of things. And so I am doing what I can to keep things together and to keep things going nicely until I am able to step off of active office or commercial tenant rep activity and focus more on the philanthropic part of what we're doing. And toward that end, we are building something called Humboldt's Home. And I think that you and many others will hear about that in coming months.
That's interesting. But where would you like to be in terms of, where would you want the company to be in the next 6 to 12 months from now?
Oh, 6 to 12 months from now, that's short enough that I think the vagaries of life really overpower any type of prediction. I would say that 3 to 5 years from now, what I would like is for the company to be known for doing business, doing good, and for that concept to be spread in a way that it has never been spread before, particularly because I would like the world to focus on doing business, doing good as consumers, not as businesses. Businesses are waiting for consumers to say, this is what you need to do, or we will not buy your product. That's what I'm working toward.
So if you had a magic wand to fix what you just said in your business, what would that one thing be?
Hmm. Really, it is expanding awareness, spreading awareness, and visibility for the concept that it is possible for the consumer in each transaction to make a decision that will more powerfully cause business to move in the right direction than has ever happened before. And that is consumers doing business, doing good as consumers, and knowing that they have that power. Look, there's a reason that an entire profession, an entire industry, and by that I'm talking about the profession of real estate brokerage, both both residential and commercial. There is a reason why all of us, and I'm one of them, all of us licensees are eager to pay more referral fees than we typically can pay. We want the business. That is the power that will propel the world toward doing business, doing good from the consumer's perspective.
Okay. Well, look, that does bring my questions to a close. Have you got any other insights that you'd like to share?
I don't, William.